Witness the fight the boxing world has been waiting for on Netflix. Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford face off for the first time in their legendary careers for the Super Middleweight Championship in Las Vegas. The winner will walk away the greatest of their era. Watch Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford Saturday, September 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live only on Netflix.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be.
Oklahoma takes to the road this weekend for the first road contest of the season, 11 a.m. kickoff. ESPN2, Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Oklahoma versus Temple. I mean, I don't know, Caleb. I got to be honest with you. I've had a fun time this week breaking down Oklahoma's win over Michigan last Saturday, and I really haven't. I'm going to be first to admit I'm not really pumped about this game on Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of people are trying to say that Temple can pull off the upset. Yes, I get it. New coaching staff. This was a terrible team last year. They're not going to overnight just get insanely good to where they can go and compete with a Power 4 school. And so I'm kind of with you. I think this is going to be a pretty one-sided game, and it's not really going to be close.
Well, that brings up our first topic of discussion here on this episode of the Sooner Nation podcast. By the way, he's Caleb. I'm Matt. Thanks for hanging out with us. I've seen it online, and I've been trying to find a way around dissecting this, but there's a lot of talk about it. Social media, on the internet. Is this a trap game for Oklahoma? Do you feel like it's a trap or not? And explain to me why you have that answer.
No, not really. I get it. It's a road game. It's gonna be in a weird environment, playing where the Eagles play. It's not gonna be a lot of people. Yes, this is a better Temple team than what we saw last year, but simply, I just don't see a way Oklahoma can lose this game. I mean, go back to last week against a very good, very talented Michigan team. Oklahoma coughed up the ball a couple times, missed the field goal, had that big drop on third down. We put ourselves in situations where we can give Michigan the momentum, and Michigan never really could find their way into this game. And I just don't see Temple be able to do something that Michigan was not able to do.
Let me have permission to play devil's advocate then, because I said it myself. I've struggled. I want to write this week on the website. I want to write more about Oklahoma's win over Michigan than I want to write about Oklahoma's contest with Temple. And I mean that's coming from just one fan media perspective, right? But if I'm struggling with that, I got to think the guys who've actually invested sweat, blood, and tears, that they've got some of the same tendencies, or at least temptations. And so I think there is the potential for it to be a trap, not just because of last Saturday, but also for the Saturday after, right? Because this game is sandwiched right in between Michigan and Auburn. And while I agree with you, I think the chance of Oklahoma losing this game are very slim. I haven't looked at what ESPN has for FPI, just because, like I said, I've just struggled to really get enthusiastic about covering this game. But I do know it's sandwiched in between two really big games, right? The biggest non-conference game of the season, and then the start of conference play with Auburn. Oh, by the way, Jackson Arnold's coming back to Norman. And you've got a team that you just suffocated last year with a terrible team. This was a bad Oklahoma team last year, compared especially with what we've seen through 2 weeks of this season. It was like 52-3. And we know that it's a new coach for Temple. And what we've seen, at least execution wise, it's they look more like a football team this year than they did last year. And then, like you just said, the stadium atmosphere is going to be weird. It's a morning kickoff, which is the first time they've done that this season. So you got that 11 a.m. kickoff. I think it's like 10 a.m. their time. No, they're ahead of us. It'll be 12 a.m. 12 a.m. Wow, 12 p.m. So still, time zones are hard for me sometimes. But you still got that funk of the morning kickoff. You've got the NFL stadium. I think there's a good chance there'll be a solid Crimson and Cream representation there on Saturday in Philadelphia. But still, it's just gonna be a weird thing. Caleb. I don't see a path to a loss here, but I can see him taking a quarter and a half or the first two quarters just to kind of wake up and then be like, oh yeah, we better kind of take care of business now. So I guess I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm almost talking myself into thinking there is a danger here, or am I just grabbing stuff out of the air?
I mean, I think you're just grabbing stuff out of the air. Yeah, I think a slow start could be possible, but I really don't see it lasting more than a quarter. I mean, you
Mhm.
saw that against Illinois State, kind of the sluggish start for OU's offense. But I just don't see a way that this Temple's offense is good enough to do much against this Oklahoma defense.
Well, they definitely are balanced. They're way more balanced than they were last year. But again, Oklahoma's defense, it's not Illinois State. Okay, so that they're better. I do believe physically they're better than Illinois State. Obviously, I don't think they're Michigan level. They're not top 15 program like the Wolverines were last Saturday. But they're somewhere in between. So it'll be a good test. I can see it. Like I said, I can see a scenario in which Oklahoma needs to make some adjustments, but I think they wake up, and I don't want to give away my score prediction too early, but I think they wake up and handle their business. Let's move into our favorite segments: true or false, and then over and under. I've got three questions. You've got three stats, kind of from the game. We'll mix them together and see what we get out of this next 5 to 10 minutes of podcast time. But I'm going to start with the true or false. I'm going to throw out a statement. You're going to tell me why it's true or why it's false. And then I may sometimes just throw in a thought or two there as well. And obviously, you have the same freedom when you hit over under. So, are you ready for the first one?
Yes.
All right, here we go. True or false? Jaren Kanak is the biggest surprise on the offensive side of the ball for Oklahoma this year.
That is really hard. Positive surprise, yes. I mean, I thought that he could be pretty decent on the offensive side of the ball. You look at his high school tape, he was a very athletic kid. They use him in the Wildcat formation a lot, but I did not
Right.
expect him to be getting 80, 90 yards a game like he is.
Hmm.
To me, the biggest surprise, so I'm going to say false, the biggest surprise has kind of been Jaden Ott's lack of production. I think he has like 4, 5 carries through 2 games with like 6 yards on the season.
Uh-huh.
And then he had the
Right.
fumble kickoff return. I don't really know what's going on with that, but to me, that's the biggest surprise.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you and just say I love what we're getting out of Jaren Kanak. Second on the team with 159 receiving yards. He's got 10 total catches. I mean, he's averaging almost 16 yards per reception, which I love the fact that you brought up his high school tape because the guy was a star in high school, both sides of the ball, but he was just a star. And you see that same potential through 2 weeks and one of those teams that was a top 15 program. But man, I'm going to raise you Jaden Ott and just say the entire running game, right? Because it's not just the lack of production um, by Jaden Ott. Do we see Tory Blaylock coming on the way that he has for a true freshman, or the difference between Javante Barnes in week 1 and Javante Barnes in week 2? In week 1, Javante Barnes looked incredibly slow and like he couldn't get started. In week 2, he just looked like he was trying to find Michigan defenders so he could punish them, averaging almost 6 yards per touch between his rushing and his receiving. But still, you've yet to have a running back in 8 quarters of football. You've yet had to have a running back exceed 100 yards on the ground. And so I'm with you. I think that's the biggest surprise. But Jaren Kinnick, for me, is a very, very, very close second. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so let's go to the second one then. And this is going to be more specific about the game against Temple on Saturday. True or false, John Mateer will not be Oklahoma's leading rusher on Saturday.
I think that's true, simply because I don't think we're going to necessarily need to run him as much as we did against Michigan and against Illinois State. And also, I feel like this is just a game that kind of has, to me, a Tory Blaylock kind of written all over it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're going to try to get Jaden Ott kind of into it as much as they can. I think Barnes is probably still the first back we see. But I feel like Blaylock, I feel like we're going to see him throughout most of this game just because of how young he is.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But I would add to that, you said they're not going to need to run John Mateer as much. I don't think they want to run John Mateer as much. I do think they want to try to find a back and try to find a hot back. I don't expect a lot from Jaden Ott just because this isn't a game where you really want to risk aggravating an injury. You do want him to try to find a rhythm. You want to try to get some positive plays from him before Auburn comes to town. I don't think he's going to be the feature guy. I like what you're saying about Blaylock. I agree with that. I think this is a game where they try to lean and get some things figured out in the running game. So I'm spot on with you 2 for 2 so far. So here's the third one, and this is kind of I don't know that this is a prediction really more than anything else. True or false? This is the Saturday where Oklahoma ends its turnover drought. The Sooners defense will finally force a turnover on Saturday.
I'm going to say true. I just think it's bound to happen.
Right.
Really, if you look through the first couple weeks, Michigan wasn't really. They kind of saw what the secondary was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they saw really what the defensive line was doing to the Michigan offensive line. So I kind of feel like they went to a more conservative play calling of, hey, let's just try to see if we can get small yardage at a time instead of taking those big chunk plays. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bryce Underwood should have had at least 2 interceptions that kind of just floated up there, and we should have been in position for, whether we weren't. So I think true. I think we were going to get a couple turnovers this game. Not just one, but a couple.
Yeah, I think we're going 3 for 3 in agreement. I think it's nothing else, law of averages, and Temple's offense in itself works on short rhythm throws, but I think Oklahoma has the capability to kind of get that rhythm out of balance and force something to happen, jump a route or get the ball in the air on a tip. But I think nothing else, just law of averages. It has to flip. It has to flip, and this defense has to start forcing turnovers. And I think this is, you're going through quarters, 9, 10, 11, and 12 in the next 4 quarters of the season. At some point, it's got to work for you, right? And I think that's what's going to happen on Saturday in Philadelphia. Okay, so let's flip the script here, Caleb. Your turn. You get to take control here with the over/under. You're going to provide three game stats, and then you're going to tell me. I'm going to tell you whether I think it'll be the over or whether it's going to be the under, and then we'll have a conversation about it.
Right. So we're just going to stay on the opposite side of the ball, all 3 over/unders. The first one, over/under 3.5 touchdowns for John Mateer.
Man, I feel like this is and that's running and passing, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I think this is. I kind of feel like this is like going to be a frequently viewed stat that we go with because the offense runs through him. But you said 3.5 or 4.5?
3.5.
I think I would definitely take the over here because I think like everything I said about the running game, I still stand by. But I can't see again, not trying to give away my score prediction. I just can't see him being involved in less than 3 touchdowns on Saturday. So I'm going to take the over. What do you think?
I mean, I agree. I think really I kind of bounced back and forth with having that at 3.5 and 4.5. I just kind of thought 5 touchdowns would be a lot for this game, just simple because
Right.
I think they are going to try to limit what he does Saturday and kind of keep him rested and kind of keep him healthy for Auburn the following week.
Yeah, but still, they're going to. I mean, especially with what they said about Michael Hawkins, trying to do everything they can to protect his redshirt quarters that he gets to play. I guess redshirt games that he gets to play. But so I think you're going to still see a lot of John Mateer. But if you would have said 3.5, I mean 4.5, it would have made me think more. But I think 3.5, I can jump right on that and say, oh,
All right. Over under 2, a half a touchdown for Jaren Kanak.
dude, I am so glad you asked this question because what I really wanted to say when we're talking about John Mateer, I think they are so in love with Jaren Kanak. I mean, it's not just the fans, it's the coaches and it's the teammates. I think they're going to try to get him in the end zone this weekend. I think it will be a concentrated effort to get him in the end zone. So, yes, give me that. I think of course, I said it for week 1 and 90-yard receptions and 90 yards in receptions in week 1, but no score. I think that changes. I think the score comes in week 3. So give me the over there.
I agree. I mean, he was very close in game 1. I think he was down at like the 2-3 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of got close, not as close. I know he dropped what would have been a touchdown on that reverse flea flicker against Michigan. But I agree. I think this is finally the week we see him get his first offensive touchdown in his collegiate career.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's one of the game within the game type moments that you look for while you're watching it.
All right, my last one. We're gonna stay with Jaren Kanak. Over under 75.5 yards receptions for him.
Ooh, so he's averaging around 80 yards per game through 2 games. I think it's obviously 90 yards against Illinois State, 70 against Michigan ish. Man, that's tough. I'm gonna say what was it?
75.5.
75.5. Man, that's so tough because it's right there with his average. I'm going to go under. I don't want to, but I'm going to just again because of what I said, and what I believe about the emphasis on trying to get the running game going. And I also know that Temple is going to try to do some ball control, keep the offense on the sideline type stuff against Oklahoma. So I'm going to go under on 75.5, and I'm going to hope that I'm wrong. I'm going to hope right out of the gate he has like a 90-yard touchdown.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to go with the over simply because of what we just talked about with this touchdown. I think they're going to try to get the ball in his hands a lot this game. Simply to kind of, if anything, just put him on tape for a big breakout game for one of our other receivers for the Auburn game. Because you're going to have to respect the middle. He's faster than you expect. You're not going to want to leave him one-on-one with linebackers. So putting something out on tape for Auburn to kind of like, hey, what can we do to stop this? To kind of lull them to sleep for something like Bergs or Keontae Lewis to have a bigger game next Saturday.
I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it, but I think to an extent they may have already done that, through the first 8 quarters of football. But we'll see. We'll see. That's not bad, Caleb. There's 3 true or false. There's 3 over-unders. So between 6 questions, we only disagreed on 1, which cannot be said for our weekly SEC power rankings. We're going to get into that here in just a second. Who is ahead of Oklahoma and why? He's Caleb. I'm Matt. This is the Sooner Nation podcast.
Hey, it's Paris. I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find
They
it.
can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you.
Ooh.
Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
So welcome back to the podcast. Again, this is the part where I want to tell you, I ask you if you enjoy our content, what we're putting out there. Help us out by giving us a subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, whether it's on iHeartRadio, wherever you're finding us. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of what we do. One of the things we do on the website, heartland-sports.com, every week, we roll them out typically on Tuesdays for the SEC, is our power rankings. And through 2 weeks of football, we've both seen Oklahoma move up. Caleb, not to be the spoiler here, but you have them at number 4 this week. I've got them high. I've bought in with the win over Michigan. I've got them at number 2, tied with Texas though at number 2. No, they're tied with Texas, I think, at number 3 overall on our consensus power rankings. I don't have them tied with Texas. I'm just trying to talk out of turn there, but I've got them at number 2. Tell me though, you've got Oklahoma at number 4. Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, I have Sooners at 4.
So who do you have at 3 and why?
I still have Texas at number 3. I
Uh-huh.
think that this is still a really good Longhorns football team. For me, I really wanted to put the Sooners at number 3, but I need to see just at least one more game against a competitive football team to kind of see where this team's fully at, and that's going to come next week against Auburn. But I just feel like number 4 is really good from what we've seen. I think that's a perfect spot for them for right now. I have Texas at number 3 just because I still think that their defense is elite. The offense is still trying to figure out their identity. I know they had a little bit more of a bounce back game against San Jose State, but it's San Jose State.
But that was exactly, yeah. Well, just to be honest with you, that's why that was my big factor in putting Oklahoma ahead of Texas. Again, it's a weekly power ranking, and you look at the win. Oklahoma has a better win and a better record. All right, so Texas, their biggest game of the season. Everyone's going to say, yeah, but it was number 1. I get it. It was number 1. It was your biggest game of the season, and you lost. And not only did you lose, you looked really bad in doing so. Yeah, you look at Oklahoma's biggest game of the season against number 15, and you win, and you look really good. And so in terms of making a weekly power ranking, for me, it was a no-brainer to put Oklahoma ahead of Texas. Now, LSU, Georgia, that's where it gets kind of tricky. And I'm assuming at number 2, number 2, you've got Georgia or LSU, right?
I have Georgia. I think Georgia has looked really good over the first 2 weeks. I think a lot of people look at that box score against Austin. Was it Austin Penny? They
Austin
played.
P.
But really, that long rain delay, I kind of feel like that kind of took all the energy out of that game. And
Right.
I think that's kind of the Georgia coaching staff and Georgia players like, hey, we're obviously better than this team. Let's just kind of get out with a win and as fast as we can type of situation.
Yeah, that's I agree, Caleb, and that's why I kept Georgia at number 1, because I think you get that long rain delay and it just kind of drags on in the afternoon. It kills the crowd, so to speak, and it's just kind of like that. Okay, guys, let's just go out here, let's get the job done, let's stay healthy, let's get back in the locker room and start preparing for week number 3. And so a 28-6 win over Austin P is not super impressive. But understanding all the circumstances, what you just said, that's the reason why I kept the Bulldogs at number 2. The reason I moved the Bulldogs at number 1. The reason I moved Oklahoma up to number 2 and I dropped LSU in my rankings was the Clemson factor, actually. And I know you know this. I sent you a text about it during the game on Saturday, where Clemson again had some weather issues and so forth, but they did not. Clemson, they ended up winning. Did not look good at all and struggling with a lesser opponent. and to me, that took some of the luster away from LSU's win over Clemson. And again, it's week 3, so there's plenty of time to readjust and to get back into the swing of things. But that was enough for me. I look at the wins across the league, and Oklahoma's got one of the best wins to this point in the conference. And so yeah, so that did it for me to put Oklahoma at number 2 and keep the Bulldogs at number 1. You've got Oklahoma at number 4. You've got Texas at number 3. You've got Georgia at number 2. So that means I'm banking on the fact that you've got LSU at number 1.
Yeah, and I just think about, going back to the last time LSU won a national championship, 2019, they played a bad Texas team and only won by a single touchdown. This was a Texas team that lost to Kansas later on in that season.
Right.
I get it.
No, that's a good point.
It's early in the season. Clemson struggled, but I just feel like LSU they've taken care of business. They won the game supposed to win. I was high on them coming on into the season, and I'm still really high on them.
No, I can't argue any of that what you said, Caleb. I just that for me, I'm looking at resume right now, and I think Oklahoma. I think you look at. I don't know. For me, and you brought this up. This was your rebuttal to me when I talked about that taking the luster off of LSU. You brought up Florida, and for me, Florida's the one that took the big tank this week. I mean, Florida's the one that just took the free fall because what I thought they were and what they really were not the same. But I think you can look at Georgia, LSU, Texas, and preseason and say these are 3 legit contenders. And then you've got Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, in my opinion, on that second level that can challenge those contenders. And I think now with what Oklahoma's done, I think you've got to move Oklahoma into that second category, but I also think you drop Texas down to that category. And so I don't have a problem saying to this point, LSU and Georgia are the front runners, and then you've got Texas, and you've got Oklahoma, and you've got Alabama, and you've got Tennessee, you've got South Carolina, all of them trying to force their way into that conversation. I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't. But with all that considered, I look at what Oklahoma did against Michigan in a primetime game, and I think that's got to be rewarded. And so that's why I put Oklahoma where they are. But I'm not going to at all say that you're wrong to keep Oklahoma at number 4. I think everybody across Sooner Nation, we're pleasantly, I'm not going to say surprised, but we're pleased with what we've seen through 2 games of the season. And Oklahoma was undefeated at this point last season, but we were also discussing all the things that were wrong with this team at this point last season, were we not?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I remember coming off the Houston win, talking about, what's going on with this offense? Can this offense get going? And then, we kind of saw it get back on track a little bit against Tulane, but you're still like, this is a shaky offense. So yeah, I have more faith, more confidence in this offense than we did a year ago. But I'm curious, where did you end up ranking Florida? Because I know I dropped them pretty low. I think we kind of had them around the same spot.
Now you're going to force me to look up my rankings. Give me 1 second. Give me some filler music or something. You're just giving me silence. Where's the filler music?
I don't have filler music.
I dropped them. I dropped them drastically. I'm trying to remember. I only had prepared for the teams ahead of Oklahoma, Caleb, and that was one. That was one. Okay. That was one team.
You had them at 15.
Thank you. But I want to say what. Yeah, I just said that the loss makes them look shaky and sent them stumbling. So yeah, all the way down to 15. They tumbled. I mean, there's you don't lose like that on your home field and not take a big tumble. I'm not saying Florida's completely out of contention, but man, the pressure's up. The pressure is up down there, and you could be seeing a coaching change in Gainesville. Which Can we take a sidebar here because we're doing final time? I know it's a Sooner Nation podcast, but let's talk about coaches for just a second. Because do you agree that Brent Venables was on the hot seat coming into the season?
Oh, 100%. And
So
I,
now, okay, keep going. Sorry.
and I still think he is.
You do. Okay. That was going to be my next question because I think beating Michigan, I think beating Michigan is something that gives him room to breathe.
It definitely
What,
does. And it goes to where if you drop maybe an Auburn or you drop
right. Okay.
Texas to where he still has room. But if we look at the end of the season and it's 6-6, 7-5, I still think it's very questionable if he's around this time next year. I really think 8-4 is the minimum he can go and still have a job.
And so now that there's some breathing room and you look at this schedule, what do you see in the near future? What would be an acceptable loss and what would be an unacceptable loss? Looking at, say, just let's go down the next four weeks.
The next 4 weeks, I mean, an unacceptable loss would be Kent State. I don't think that's going to
Sure.
happen.
Yeah. Right.
I think honestly, I think Auburn's an unacceptable loss. I know I just said that he has a breathing room, but I don't think you can allow the quarterback that you benched and allowed to transfer out.
Yes.
And I get it. Jackson Arnold was not good, but you cannot allow them to come into Norman and win. I think if you lose to Texas, I know as a Sooner fan, I don't want to lose to Texas ever. And I know that his record against Texas is not great. He's sitting at 1-2. But I think if you drop that Texas game, and then if you drop the week after to South Carolina, I think those are both acceptable losses. At South Carolina, they're not as good as what I thought they were going to be. Their
Really
offense is
interesting.
I had South Carolina at number 4 for the longest time, and I kind of
Right.
jumped them just because the South Carolina offense through 2 weeks, 24 up on Virginia Tech, which Vanderbilt put up 45, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then 38 against South Carolina State. They're not, that offense is not what I thought they were going to be. I expected them in Tennessee, South Carolina, Tennessee kind of flip-flop for me. Tennessee's
Okay.
offense is flowing a lot better. But anyways, I still think Texas and going to South Carolina, I think those are losses that you can look at like, you know what? Yeah, I can understand that.
So let me ask you about Texas because I thought going into the season that would be, the number one ranked team in the country. That would be an acceptable loss. But when you see the way Oklahoma has played the first 2 weeks, you see the way Texas has played the first 2 weeks. Oklahoma's stock is rising. Texas stock is dropping. Does that change anything for the Red River rivalry? Does that make it any less of an acceptable loss if it were to go that way? Or is it still pretty much holding solid? Yeah, that's a team that you can lose to, and then we'll just regroup and move on.
I think it's still we can regroup and move on simply because I get it. Their offense looked terrible against Ohio State, but
Mm-hmm.
their defense looked really, really good. Now, if they would have gone out and it was like a 35-7 loss, then I
Uh-huh.
think we can talk about, kind of being a little bit unacceptable. But holding the number one team to the country to 14 points, that defense played lights out and reminded me a lot of the OU defense of last year to where the defense was playing lights out and the offense just couldn't get anything going.
And that's a trend that I hope continues in Austin. We are agreed that there's probably not a coach in the country more on the hot seat right now than Mike Gundy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say yes, but I think you look at there's a couple coaches around the country, couple coaches in the SEC that I think that are just about the same. But
Does one of those coaches have the last name of Stoops?
Yes. Unfortunately, I think Mark Stoops, correct?
Yes, yes.
I think his time with Kentucky could be ending. I think is it Hugh Freeze at Auburn. I know that they kind of had
Yeah,
that
they're off
big.
to a good start, but yeah, he
I've-
had some.
I
He was
still
like Brent Venables coming in.
I still think he's in that same position as Brent Venables as kind of wait and see what the latter half of the season is. But I think what's really hurting Mike Gundy more than his team's on-field performance is his son out there saying that he's the only reason why Oklahoma State football is relevant.
Yeah, but see, to me, that reeked of desperation. That tells me I'm looking between the lines here, and I'm seeing those Twitter comments that were X comments that were deleted, and but that for me, I'm saying there's behind closed doors conversations happening, and I kind of thought maybe they would owe Mike Gundy too much money, but then I remember he did some sort of contract restructure, gave some money back, so forth, made himself very much more fireable than what he had been before that. And Caleb, I think there's a chance that he doesn't survive the year, because I mean, it's. I'm with you. It's not just what happens on the field, and he's really in a bad spot because he lost his starting quarterback for 5 weeks, but you look at the difference between these two quarterbacks and you think, how is that even a contest unless you're just trying to keep the opponents from knowing what your game plan is? And it has to be that. But then it's the war of words over Oregon's spending with NIL. It's all that stuff that comes with Mike Gundy. That to an extent, his son's right. Between being a player and a coach, he is Mr. Cowboy. But I think he's also the victim of his own demise because they're there because he refused to play in the transfer portal. He refused to accept it. He refused to own NIL. And now the program has been set back years. And I don't know that he can recover from that. But again, this is the Sooner Nation podcast. But I do want to say this, though. I don't want to keep talking about Oklahoma State other than to say, man, how bad did this university need Oklahoma? Because you look at their sports, their revenue sports as a whole. As soon as Oklahoma dips to the SEC, they were so bitter, so angry, so mad. But now we're going to run the Big 12. No, you're not. You're not going to run it in basketball. You're not going to run it in football. You can't even run it in softball. When you were, you were competitive with Oklahoma in softball until now you get the moment on the big stage to run it. And, here's Texas Tech, And so I just, man, as a whole, that entire athletic program is falling apart in my opinion. But I digress and don't need to talk much more about Oklahoma State. Let's go back to Oklahoma and Temple. Can finish this sentence for me. I'll be satisfied on Saturday if.
I'll be satisfied Saturday if we do not kill all the momentum we gained from the Michigan game. We look at it, the ball's going. You've seen it not just for this season, but for recruiting classes to come. You had a kid from California who was his first time in Norman, fell in love with the atmosphere, fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the program, and committed. If you go out there and you have that sluggish start, you go out there and you win a 38-17 game, a lot of that momentum that you just gained from beating a top 15 team kind of goes away.
I'm with you. We're out of time. I think we're about to lose our feed, but I'm just going to say I'll be satisfied if they stay close to the point spread. Real fast, give me your score prediction for Saturday.
I have 52-17 Sooners.
52-17. Nice. The 23.5 point favorite for Oklahoma. 52.5 is the over/under. I'm going to say they cover. I'm going to say.
be the man who's